Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Yesteryear TV. These are the best horror films, the movies that we love, the best horror films of 1964. Let's check out the films that were scaring everybody in theaters of 1964. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, action, adventure, and fantasy. A detective is assigned to protect a princess whose prophesies the Earth's end with the arrival of a powerful space monster. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. This movie was scary and spooky when it came out, and it still is. Time of Indifference, drama and horror. A penniless countess falls in love with a cad, unaware that he is also involved on the side with her beautiful daughter. Time of Indifference. This movie is spooky, thriller, scary, and horror. The Last Man on Earth. Drama, horror, and sci-fi. When a disease turns all of humanity into the living dead, the last man on Earth becomes a reluctant vampire hunter. The Last Man on Earth will not disappoint, again featuring Vincent Price. The Earth Dies Screaming. Horror and sci-fi. In Britain, a group of survivors fights off a deadly alien invasion that uses robots and a poisonous gas to take over the Earth. The Earth Dies Screaming. This movie is good and funny and scary. 2000 Maniacs. Horror. 6 people are lured into a small deep south town for a centennial celebration, where the residents proceed to kill them one by one as revenge for the town's destruction during the Civil War. 2000 Maniacs. Blood and Black Lace. Crime, horror, and mystery. A masked, shadowy killer brutally murders the models of a scandalous fashion house in Rome. Blood and Black Lace. The House of Horrors. The Castle of the Living Dead. Horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Count Drago invites entertainers to his castle, but what the people don't know is that Drago mummifies animals and humans. The Castle of the Living Dead. This movie is spooky and scary. I highly recommend it. Children of the Damned. 6 impossibly intelligent children from all over the world with dangerous psychic powers hide in a church in England after the military tries to experiment on them. Drama, horror, and mystery. Children of the Damned. Crypt of the Vampire. Count Karnstein sends for a doctor to help his sick daughter, Laura. Her nurse believes she is possessed by the spirit of a dead ancestor, Carmilla. Crypt of the Vampire. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. British archaeologists and their American investor ship an Egyptian mummy's sarcophagus to London, but someone has the amulet to revive the mummy. Someone revives the mummy and he goes on a killing spree. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Curse of the Blood Ghouls. In 19th century Austria, a newlywed couple in an old castle soon are targeted by a savage vampire who is hell-bent on destroying both their entire lives when he centers his main focus on the woman. Curse of the Blood Ghouls. Castle of Blood. A journalist takes a bet that he can spend the night in a haunted castle on All Hallows Eve. During his stay, he bears witness to the castle's gruesome past coming to life before him. Castle of Blood. Devil Doll. Horror. An evil hypnotist ventriloquist plots to gain an heiress's millions. Devil Doll. This movie is good, it's creepy. What is the strange, terrifying evil secret of the Devil Doll? Next up we have is The Castle of the Monsters. The Castle of the Monsters. This has everything. The Wolfman, the Mummy, Frankenstein, Dracula. People come visit the castle, and they are scared to death because they face every monster imaginable. Castle of the Monsters. Face of the Screaming Werewolf. Experimenting in hypnotic regression to past lives, Dr. Redding of the Cowan Institute of Pasadena has discovered that Ann Taylor is a reincarnated Aztec woman. Face of the Screaming Werewolf. The Flesh Eaters. A group of young adults trapped on a desert island find the water inhabited by a violent form of flesh-eating organisms. The Flesh Eaters. This movie again is creepy for its time. It's scary to go swimming and then be eaten alive by organisms. Ugh. The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies? That's the title. Jerry falls in love with a stripper he meets at a carnival. Little does he know that she is the sister of a gypsy fortune teller whose predictions he had scoffed at earlier turn up true. Next up we have is Kiss Me Quick. A sexual ambassador from a distant planet comes down to Earth in search of feminine breeding stock. Kiss Me Quick. This is comedy, fantasy, and horror. The Last Man on Earth. When a disease turns all of humanity into the living dead, the last man on Earth becomes a reluctant vampire hunter. Featuring you-know-who, Vincent Price. Vincent Price and Boris Karloff dominated the horror scenes back in the 60s and the 50s. Night of the Vampires. A mad scientist and his bevy of vampires terrorize a German village. A detective and a witch set out to stop them. Night of the Vampires will not disappoint. Nightmare. Janet is a young student at a private school. Her nights are troubled by horrible dreams in which she sees her mother, who is in fact locked in an insane asylum. Nightmare. 3 shocking murders. Did she dream them? Or did she? The Curse of the Living Corpse. Relatives gather in an old house for the reading of a will. But the dead man comes back to life and starts killing. Isn't that good? They should remake that movie in 2024. The Curse of the Living Corpse. That would be really good. I would pay to see that remake. Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Stranded on Mars with only a monkey as a companion, an astronaut must figure out how to find oxygen, water, and food on the lifeless planet. Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Adventure, sci-fi, and horror. Crypt of the Vampire. Count Karnstein sends for a doctor to help his sick daughter, Laura. Her nurse believes she is possessed by the spirit of a dead ancestor, Carmilla. Crypt of the Vampire, featuring the legendary Christopher Lee. The Blood Drinkers, the first color horror picture produced in the Philippines. The Blood Drinkers. So this is like a Dracula type movie where they're basically killing people and drinking their blood. But this is a first color horror film for the Philippines. You want horror blood? Check out the movie. The Creeping Terror. A newlywed sheriff tries to stop a shambling monster that has emerged from a spaceship to eat the citizens of an American town. The Creeping Terror. Horror and sci-fi. Now, this could possibly be a B movie in today's standards, but back then it was creepy. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. British archaeologists and their American investors ship an Egyptian mummy's sarcophagus to London, but someone has the amulet to revive the mummy. Who will revive the mummy? Because when they do, the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb will kill people. The Evil of Frankenstein. Upon returning to his home village to continue his experimental research, the destitute Dr. Frankenstein revives his old creature, but a hypnotist wants the monster to control for himself. The Evil of Frankenstein. The Gorgon. In the early 20th century, a Gorgon takes human form and terrorizes a small European village by turning its citizens to stone. That should be good, huh? Almost like Medusa. So it's going to turn its citizens into stone. So they'll be doing something, then they'll freeze up like a stone. The horror of it all. Comedy, horror, and mystery. When an American salesman and his English fiancée visit her eccentric family, who live in a remote old mansion in the country, he discovers that someone is trying to kill everyone. The horror of it all. Comedy, horror, and mystery. The Mask of the Red Death. A European prince terrorizes the local peasantry while using his castle as a refuge against the Red Death plague that stalks the land. The Mask of the Red Death. The Mistresses of Dr. Jekyll. A mad scientist creates a hideous monster to carry out his murderous plans. The Mistresses of Dr. Jekyll. So, looks like Dr. Jekyll's back, killing people. A lot of scares, kills. The Monster of Camp Sunshine, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Nature. A scientist carelessly dumps some toxic waste into a river. The gardener at a nudist camp drinks the water, turns into a monster, and attacks all the nudists. Comedy and horror. The Monster of the Opera. A theater's troupe's young, energetic leader has secured an old theater in which to produce his new production. The theater's elderly caretaker urges the group to leave at once. People are going to start dying. The Monster of the Opera. The Wrestling Women versus the Aztec Mummy. If you've ever longed for a movie about wrestling women who take on various monsters, this is it. There is Chukdil, a female mummy, and her lover, Chuckamuk, who is also a mummy. The Wrestling Women versus the Aztec Mummy. The Black Torment. Horror and mystery. A lord returns to his manor with his new wife to hear rumors that he had already secretly returned and had committed several murders. Has he lost his mind, or is this something dark afoot? The Black Torment. The Horror of Party Beach. Sea creatures created from radioactive sludge terrorize a local beach community. The Horror of Party Beach. So here is, again, more beach-type surf movies. You're going to have some good music, teenagers, and killing people. Monsters. The Night Walker. Horror, mystery, and thriller. A woman is haunted by recurring nightmares, which seem to be instigated by her late husband, who supposedly was killed in a fire. The Night Walker. Not the Night Stalker, the Night Walker. Robert Taylor and Barbara Stanwyck. The Strangler. An overweight lab technician with low self-esteem, brought on by his dominant mother, becomes a serial killer of female nurses. The Strangler. Crime, drama, and horror. Next up we have is The Time Travelers. In 1964, a group of scientists create a portal that takes them to the barren, Newton-inhabited Earth in the year 2071. So this is 1964. They're going to travel to 2071. War of the Zombies. A fantastic yarn about a plot to conquer the world with an army of zombies. War of the Zombies. Action, drama, horror, and adventure. So this movie has it all. Zombies, and it's a horror film. Next that we have is Witchcraft. Horror. When her grave is disturbed by modern-day land developers, a 300-year-old witch is accidentally resurrected and terrorizes an English village. Witchcraft. After 300 years in the grave, they return to reap blood. Those were the horror films that we loved of 1964. What do you think about those movies? Do you remember any of these movies? Did any of these movies scare you when you first saw them? Did you goof on them? Did you laugh at them? Again, I have most of these movies. I've seen these movies. They're wonderful. When you look back at these movies now, they're nice little gems. Again, different times. And it's mostly dialogue. Not so much special effects, but through the direction, the acting, you believe the characters. Again, some of it is cheesy, but for the time, there's a lot of good, scary, suspenseful thrillers. Movies back then were more suspenseful and thrillers, as opposed to just slasher, slash, slash, slash. They made you think. You didn't know where it was coming and so forth. So those were the horror movies that we loved of 1964. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback below. And you want any movies that I missed, let me know and I'll touch up on them. I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me here at Yesteryear TV. I'll see you